We are live. Let's
Hello, can
go.
you hear
I
me?
still can't
Ah,
hear you.
no, darn it.
Oh
Ah,
gosh. Okay, everyone. I hope welcome to my very first
thank
live
you.
um
Thank
with
you.
Alexandra. And unfortunately, we're having some technical issues. Wouldn't that be the way it goes? I'm
I
not
wonder
sure
if
what's
any,
going on, but we're going to try and fix our technical issues and come back. Please join us again. I don't if you can hear her,
can you
just
hear me, everying? Can
say
anyone
I
hear
can
me?
hear it because I can't hear her. I don't know
It's
what's
telling
going
me
on.
everyone can hear me.
Apparently it's not being our friend. This is so
Ah,
weird. Try and talk now.
darn.
Let's
Yeah, is anyone else in here who
nope.
can,
Still can't hear you.
shoot. I wonder if anyone
Oh,
else
this
can hear
sucks.
me.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our live. We are super excited. I'm here with Alexandra from Two of Wands, and we can't hear her. So we have to try
Oh,
and figure out what the
Diane is,
issue is. She's saying, hold on a minute.
Diane says she can hear me.
Still can't hear you. I'm really good at reading lips, though. But I still can't hear you.
Darn.
I don't know what's happening. You guys can hear her?
Yeah.
It's me?
Yeah.
How about pressing the unmute button
Yeah.
allows you to hear people. So when you have other people muted, you can't hear them. So that's
Oh,
what it
can you
is.
hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yay! Okay,
Oh my
amazing. Listen,
goodness. Well, I
I
hope
am
you guys got a chuckle from that one. I'm like all set up. I was here since 7:30. I'm like, I'm ready to get this party started. And I'm on mute. Okay,
it's okay. It happens to us all. I mean, I have technological issues every day, you know?
unbelievable.
And they're usually
Well,
my fault.
they're always my fault. I'm like, earlier this week, I was looking for my glasses. I'm like, I can't find them. I don't know where they are. Where are my glasses? They were on top of my head. So it's not just technology, it's
I do that all the
everything.
time too.
Yeah, it's everything.
Glasses.
Hi!
Hi. We're
I'm so
finally here.
excited. We're finally here. We're doing it. We're talking. And hi, everyone who is watching. I'll do my introduction again. So I
Yep.
am Deveter Brown, the content director here at Furls Crochet. And we have decided that this year we are going to talk to all of you amazing makers. And so for Nat Chromo, which I like to call Nat Chromo Jojo, we decided that we were going to talk to makers who were either knitters or crocheters or Tunisian crocheters and just let them share their stories. So I don't know if you all have been following, but from the beginning of the month, we have posted some really cool maker stories just so that you can get to know your designers a little bit better. I don't know about you, but I'm always on Ravelry. I'm always looking for patterns. And I never really have a connection to the people that I am downloading patterns from. So
Yep.
I was really excited to do Maker Stories. And today I am delighted to have Alexandra with me. She's from Two of Wands, and I'll give her an opportunity to tell us all about her, what she does, what inspires her, and why crochet or knit is a valuable part of her life. So this floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for that, and for having me. It's such an honor to be part of this and to meet you virtually. I'm so happy to be here, and yeah, I'm just here to answer all your questions, guys. Whatever you want to throw at me.
Yeah, ask
We didn't
away.
organize, any questions beforehand, so I got no idea what you're gonna ask me, but I'm here for it all. I've been knitting since I was like a child, and I only taught myself crochet, I think in 2012 or 2013
Wow.
on a trip to Costa Rica, actually. I brought a learn to crochet book with me and forced myself to learn how to do it while I was there. And right after that is actually when I launched Two of Wands as an Etsy shop where I was selling finished pieces. Um, And I sold only finished pieces for a couple of years. And then I got really into, well, I was selling some patterns as well, but I got really into pattern design a couple of years in, and then just kind of switched totally. I was doing both for a little while and then switched totally over to design. And yeah, I've been doing it ever since. So I started it in 2013. 8 years it will be on Thanksgiving. That was the day that I launched it in 2013.
That's
And
just awesome.
it's been so fun. It's a lot of work, but it's been
It
so
is.
fun.
It is.
And meeting people like you, like I just love the way that this community connects with each other and we can all share and everything. So yeah.
Likewise, I think it's so interesting. What I'm learning from doing these maker stories is that a lot of people started by making and selling products, and then they
Mm-hmm.
got into design and like stopped making and selling products and just started selling their patterns.
Yeah.
And you guys have just taken over and really exploded. So I'm really excited for you. And I
Thank
do
you.
have to ask, how did you learn how to knit? Was it someone in your
Yeah.
family?
My mom is an artist, and both she and my grandmother were constantly making things my entire childhood. They both loved to cook and garden and make everything around the house. My mom is a painter, but she also would make things out of clay and do sculptures. And she painted the floor and the walls and paintings and furniture. And she knew how to sew. And she actually studied textile design. It was just constantly like my whole house growing up is just like a big art studio of all these different
Mhm.
supplies. And I actually studied fashion design in college in Indiana, which is a strange place to study fashion design. But the program was more geared towards costume design. So we were doing a lot of like hand finishing techniques. And I think that I was always drawn to fashion design, but learning all of these kind of like, you know, hand techniques that were like really beautiful couture things, I think has influenced a lot of my knitwear design as well. So every year around the holidays, my mom would always have to reteach me how to knit. As a kid, I always wanted to make gifts for people, but I'd forget how to cast on or I'd forget how to bind off. And, every year I would need to be retaught until I think college is when I really started knitting a little bit more. And then after college, I was just like, every time I was inspired by something, I'd want to knit it. And I hadn't even followed that many patterns, to be honest. A lot of it was just trial and error on my own. And I still don't consider myself like a hugely advanced knitter, definitely not crocheter. But that's what's beautiful about this is you can be a total beginner and create beautiful things, even design beautiful things. And that's really why I love it, because it is so much more accessible. I think people can be very intimidated by both crafts if you don't know how to do it.
Yes.
But as soon as you learn, it's muscle memory and it's so addicting. And, so yeah.
It's definitely addicting.
Hmm.
I have had times where I was up until 2 o'clock in the morning, like, I am going to figure out this stitch. Like, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to finish this pattern. So, for
Yes, that is
sure.
me every day, basically up
Yeah,
till 2 a.m. working.
yeah. Not always a good thing, but it's
No, it's
definitely,
it's now 8:12. I've got my coffee
right.
here, my green juice, my water. I'm just like settling in for a long night of crocheting. So,
I hate, what are you working on right now?
I work a lot with Lion Brand, and I am doing a spring collection in
Ooh,
collaboration with them. So I've got 8 pieces I'm working on, 4 knit and 4 crochet. And the one that I'm doing right now is going to be a very wide, it's so hard to tell in this, a very wide, almost like a tube crochet pullover sweater. That's going to
ooh,
be a V-neck. So it's worked up the back and then down the front. So I've got one front part sort of
going.
going. And I got to
Okay.
do the other one. Then I got to connect them.
I've always been so intimidated by them. Everybody is like, it's really just a square and two
It is.
panels that you're making. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's what you say. And
Yeah.
then you guys go and put cables and all kinds of fancy things in it. I'm like, what is happening here? But
You can make so many things out of a rectangle or a square. It's crazy. You really
I
can.
gotta,
And then when you learn just a couple decreases or increases, it's like
uh,
you can
sky's
make
the
anything.
limit.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, I was going through your YouTube channel because, you got to do your research before you sit down and talk to people. And first of all, I saw the video where you did a day in a life and you were
Nice.
crocheting and knitting everywhere in New York City. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, okay. So I have to ask you, are you from New York or did you
No,
just live here?
I'm from Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, originally. Then I went to college in Indiana, and then I moved to New York right after that. So I've been in New York for 16 years.
Wow.
So I guess that I'm a real New Yorker now.
Yes, you are now.
Yeah, but
Anybody
now
who can make it past year 7, you're a New Yorker.
okay, good to know. But in the last 3 years, I've been splitting my time between upstate New York and the Catskill Mountains and the city. So I go back and forth pretty frequently, which is a blessing and also can be very dysfunctional.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I miss the times when we can all just be outside freely with each other. And because I work from home, I'm kind of an extrovert and I like to be out with the energy of everyone. And so I spent most of my days previous to last year just working from cafes in the city and, sitting outside, which guess I could still do, but it's been so cold here.
Yeah.
So I really do miss that. Yeah. But that video is funny because it's very accurate. That is how I am. My yarn is with me everywhere I go, on the
I love
subway,
it.
if I go out to eat.
I love it.
I'm always the one at like a sports bar with my friends watching, not that I go to sports bars that often, but if I were to, my friends are all watching the screen and I'm like sitting in front of the screen talking to all of them while I'm knitting. Like that's
I mean, so you knit without even looking at what you're doing. How is that?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends. I can feel the stitches. Same with crochet. If it's just a simple stitch, that's fine. But if I'm trying to count something, or if there's like a cable or anything more intense, then I do have to look down. But
okay, yeah, because that video, that kind of, I was like, she's walking down the street just knitting away. I love it. I think that's so awesome. I love that, you are here in New York, and in the written interview that we did, everyone, you can go and
Are
check
you
out
in New York too?
I am a New Yorker, born and bred. I'm a New York girl.
Goodness. Then the fact that you told me that my years count, that really means something.
Your years count. You've been through a few things, so your years count. We'll keep.
Thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot.
You're welcome. So knit, and then you got into crochet. Tell us a little bit about how you, I won't say made that transition, but how you started to crochet.
I love knitting because I feel like I've been doing it longer and I know a little bit more. I'm not necessarily, I wouldn't say like more comfortable knitting than crocheting, but I think that I can work stuff out maybe a little bit easier in knitting to some degree, or I know how to build a garment in knitting more so than I do crochet. There's some similarities and there's some differences. Crochet stitches are taller, so the math is a little bit different when you're like grading a garment or something like that. But I noticed in just like following other fiber artists and stuff, just how quickly crochet things can be made. And so when I was first starting out and I was selling finished pieces, I'm like, how can I make this faster? So learning crochet was key for that. Also, it's a little bit more freeform. And I was following people who were doing just this incredible actual art, like in museums and galleries. It was just like so fantastical and there was no restriction to it. And I was really interested in being able to do that. I still haven't really done any of that myself, but I just wanted to like learn it all. I mean, I knew that I would love it. Anything having to do with yarn, it's so fun. And so, I was just curious about it, to be honest, as well. So I still, I think I have probably an even amount of patterns in both knit and crochet. I love both crafts equally. I just think that they suit different purposes. I make a lot of crochet bags and purses. Probably wouldn't do a lot of that in knitting just because it's not as structured. Blankets are great in both crafts, but crochet blankets go very quickly. I still, when I'm thinking about a garment, I lean towards the idea of being in knit initially. And a lot of times I try to challenge myself and say, how could I also do this in crochet? And some things translate easily and some things I find fairly impossible to do in both. But yeah, people always say like, which one do you like better? And it's like, you gotta follow that up with for this thing. If you say, which do you like better for bags? I can tell you, it's hard to choose one overall. And people are always also asking, don't your hands hurt? You're working so hard. I'm like, my hands would hurt from typing because 80% of my job is literally just on the computer. But no, even when I'm stitching for hours at a time, I'm lucky that I don't get a lot of like hand cramps or really at all. But I also think that's because I'm toggling so frequently between
Me
knitting and
too.
crochet and like different stitches, different gauges of yarn, different sizes of hooks and needles, that it's not a continuous, I'm not knitting with DK yarn on size 3 needles for hours, you know? I'm like
I
moving around
couldn't
doing different things.
even imagine doing that for hours and hours. I mean, that's just craziness. And
Yeah.
so, since you're talking about tools, tell me a little bit about the Furls tools that you use.
Yes. Well, I have a couple of my hooks here. I gotta say, when I first started crocheting,
Mhm.
I won't name any brand names, but
Thank you.
we all, when we start, we're going
We
to the
all had
craft
those.
stores and we're getting our hooks there,
Yeah,
and you get very used to the style of hook that you learn with. And
yes.
I didn't even realize when I was first learning that there were two different kinds of hooks. There's inline and tapered hooks, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And so I learned on an inline hook, which are much more rare. And I didn't realize that. And I remember like sometimes I'd be somewhere and not have the hook I need, borrow it from a friend, or like have to pick one up quickly and just be like, I can't crochet with this. Why? I'm used to using this size. I know what I'm doing, but my hook is getting stuck because like
Mhm,
the tip of it's too big and then it's narrow and it's getting stuck
uh,
in there.
uh,
And I saw all my friends using these fancy hooks with these like ergonomic handles and all these pretty things, decals and everything on them. And they were all tapered. And I could
mm,
not get myself, I tried so many times to use them and they wouldn't work for me.
it wouldn't work.
Then I
Mhm.
discovered, I gotta say, I think it was Tony from TL Yarn Crafts and Lee
Yes,
from
she's one of
Coco
our
Crochet Lee.
favorites.
Yes,
Yes.
those two ladies who I love,
Uh-huh.
friends of mine as well, they obviously have so many good things to say about Furls hooks. And I started looking at their posts and realizing that this is kind of a hybrid, maybe between an inline
Mhm.
and a tapered hook, but they are
Right.
tapered, or they're inline exactly the way I love them. So these were my first Furls purchases, and I just love them because now I can use this beautiful handle that's so nice to hold, but I can still easily get it in and out of my stitches because of the way that these heads are shaped. So I also
That's
love these because they're lightweight. Are these made of resin? What is the material
Yes,
that
they're
they're?
made of resin. Yes, those
Yes,
are our
yes.
swirls.
It's the swirls, yeah.
And they're made of resin, and they're so nice, and I have mine too. They're
Yeah.
nice and just feel really good on your hands when
They
you're
do.
crocheting, you know?
Yes. They're
This
like the perfect weight because they're not so weightless that they feel
like you have nothing in your
impractical, or
hand.
yeah,
Yeah,
they have a nice weight to them. They feel good like a tool, but they're not gonna like weigh you down or give you wrist pain or anything like that. So I
yes.
really, really love these.
Yes. Like
And I'm
this is my I call her my ebony princess. This is a streamlined
oh,
wood, and I just
that's
love
pretty.
it. It just and I crochet like this, whatever that grip is, knife or
Oh
whatever they
yes, the knife hold. Me
the
too.
knife grip.
Not the pencil hold. Yeah,
Yeah,
the knife hold.
I
Me
don't
too.
know how to crochet like that,
Me
but
either.
I just love, love, love my hooks. When I was
Yeah.
introduced to them by a very good friend, I was like,
Mhm.
man, these are really cool. So
Yes.
hey, I'm glad
Yes,
you
and
love
I
them
just
too.
love, I was so limited in the colors and everything, and these are just so beautiful and offered in so many different colors and shapes and everything. So it's fun to be able to indulge in that. I don't have the
Yes.
hook collection that like Lee and Tony have. They both love to collect things like that. I'm like, I live in a tiny apartment. I've got space for anything except for the essentials. So I got to have like one hook of each size, and that's pretty much it.
Well, that's a
But
good thing.
I also wanted to mention that one of the hooks that the first hook that I actually bought from Furls was this one, which is the 7mm, and it's so hard to find in most brands, 7mm, because I always had the 6.5 and then the 8. So
Yeah.
this was the first one, and
Oh,
love it. I love having
yay.
that.
And
Yeah.
she's been putting it to work for you, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yes, you've been putting it to work. That's
Oh
really
yeah.
cool. Oh
Oh yeah.
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 So you just mentioned that you live in a tiny apartment. Tell us about
Mhm.
your yarn stash. How do you manage a stash?
Okay, it actually doesn't look that bad right now. Do you want to see it?
I want to see it.
Okay, hang on. My apartment is quite messy. So I'm upstate right now,
Uh-huh.
not in the city,
Mhm.
but this is what this looks like.
Oh my
And then
God,
there's
it's
always
pretty
lots of stuff on the
on
floor,
the floor.
always. Um, but I also have so many bags and boxes hiding in closets, behind my bed, under the bed, so that's the pretty
I
stuff.
love it.
But I did just do a huge stash clean out and donation. So I was able to move a lot of product out to give me some more space, which was nice.
I hear you. I was
Yeah.
on our private chat and didn't get a chance to see all the wonderful things that people are saying. And
Oh,
yeah, one person said that
I'm
Two
not
of
either.
Wands is a unique name. How did you
Oh,
come up with the name
thank
for your
you.
business?
Oh yeah. So this story, it sounds so fancy or whatever. Maybe I'm embellishing a little bit, but I'm not. Um, so as I said, I studied fashion design, and I always wanted to do something that was creative and in like the fashion industry. And when I moved to New York right after school, I was actually pretty unqualified for any fashion position because I hadn't learned computer aided design or any sort of modern techniques. Like I said, the school that I studied, Indiana University, not the most fashion forward place. So I learned a lot of these like hand couture techniques, which are not really applicable to today's like mover shake or fashion world. And I found a job actually working as a personal assistant to an incredible woman named Petra Nemkova, who had survived the tsunami in Thailand in 2014 or 2004,
Mhm.
excuse me.
Mhm.
Um, and she was starting a nonprofit to help children who were victims of natural disasters worldwide by rebuilding schools. And so I got connected to her, and I was her assistant, and I was working for this nonprofit Happy Hearts Fund. That she started for 8 years, and that whole time it was like very rewarding. You're doing something good, but I really missed doing creative things. So I was always knitting on the side and designing things for myself. And I was turning 30, and one of my friends, who is a daredevil, a little bit crazier than me, was like, let's climb Mount Kilimanjaro. She's like, one of my friends just did it, and she said it was so easy. It's like walking up a hill. And if you know me, I hate pretty much all forms of exercise, and I had never been hiking, and I'm like, I am not, what are you talking about? This is not for me. And she's like, no, it's going to be great. And the more I thought about it, I was like, that sounds incredible. And I saved up, and we decided to do it. And I was like, I had turned 30. I was like facing all these milestones and really questioning what I wanted to do with my career. Like, I've been doing this nonprofit stuff for 8 years. Like, I don't know how to do anything else. So I'm kind of like stuck in this industry. And while it's amazing and rewarding, it's also very limiting, and it wasn't really fulfilling me the way that I thought something else might. So we climbed this mountain without any sort of training or anything. And it depends on which route you take, but it can be, accomplished by anyone at any size or weight or height or age or ability. I've seen people, missing limbs, blind people, have made it to the top. So I don't want it to seem like I did it with ease, or everyone a lot of people can make it to the top, but I was astonished that I was able to, having never done anything like this in my life. I definitely cried the entire way up, because I was just terrified of the height, and just it was a traumatic experience. But the whole time I was doing it, you're alone with your thoughts for like 9 hours a day of just essentially, yes, walking uphill. And I just kept thinking about, I need to know like which direction I want to go in. And I was just questioning my job and all of these things, and how to be able to do something creative. And as soon as we reached the other side, we met this incredible woman who was reading tarot cards, who was staying at our lodge, and she offered to read both of our cards. And and I know nothing about tarot, so also I'm not an expert in this at all, but she was reading my cards, and she was saying that this deck was unfolding and it was really beautiful. And she said the final card I turn over is going to really tell us like something about your future. So like have in your mind like a question, you want answered and stuff. And so she turned over the Two of Wands, and she told me that this card represents having two choices. The card itself is an image of a man standing with two wands, tall. They almost look like walking sticks. And one is a little bit ahead of him and one is right in front of him. And she said that represents having two choices. One is leading you down a path that is unknown and might lead to more obstacles and more challenges, but in the end will be more fulfilling. And the other one is keeping you where you are, stable. Neither of them is the right or the wrong answer, but the one that involves the more challenges and obstacles can often lead to, you know, greater fulfillment. And so that usually indicates you should choose something that's more creative, or an idea that you've had that you want to pursue, but you're scared. Like, don't stay stable, continue down this path of doing something creative. So I was like, oh, man, that I felt it. So I went back to New York and I just opened an Etsy shop that was called Two of Wands. And I had it open for like 6 months without putting anything in it. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I even was questioning, like, do I want to be on Etsy? Is that too crafty? It doesn't seem fashionable to me, you know, but I saw so many people really having success there. And so without knowing, I gave like a 5-month notice that I was leaving my job, lots of time to, you know, close that out. And then I took an entire month off of life and went back to Ohio to just sit with all my mom's art supplies and kind of see what came to me. And it was November. And I was knitting a bunch of things for gifts because I did that every year. And on Thanksgiving Day, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put a couple of things in this Etsy shop and see what happens. And I think just it, you know, it was the timing. Who knows what it was? It blew up and it was very successful right away. And I got all these comments of people saying, oh, yeah, I love how your name is Two of Wands. Is that like two knitting needles? You know, they're like magic wands. And I was like, no, but now they are.
Right,
And this is this total double meaning to me. So I think, you
right.
know, it was destiny maybe, but it does have this dual meaning for me, of like choosing this creative path and also arriving at knitting and yarn crafts in general. Sorry, that was very long and
No,
just
that was
but
awesome. And I'm glad that you were able to share that story because I
you
did.
don't need a story like that to start doing something you love or launching a brand at all. Mine just happens to be very flowery.
It's a very good story because I did think it was because of the knitting needle. So it's
Yeah.
really cool that you have that. So another person wanted to know, what was your first pattern that you designed and what inspired you to design it?
Cool. So the first thing I designed was before I launched my brand, like a few years before that. And I had made this for like everyone I knew as well. So it was the first thing that I put in my shop actually. And I call it the armor scarf. Where I was working at this nonprofit was right on the Hudson River, and it was very windy and very cold in the winter right there. So I just wanted something that I could like pull up. I made a lot of cowls initially, when I was first knitting for friends and stuff, but I wanted something that was like really big and could like pull up like a hood. But I also, in the city, I don't like to wear big bulky coats because you're getting in and out of, you know, subways and everything, and moving around, spaces aren't very big. And so I tended to wear just like, you know, tighter little jackets. And I wanted something that would just fall over that and create more of a body warmth as well. Kind of like, and I think after I climbed Kilimanjaro too, I was like, oh, I should also, you know, make this my first pattern because I learned so much about core warmth and things that keep the
Mm.
center of your body warm, and how, you know, that's the most important part of your body to keep warm. So the armor scarf, it's kind of like a little poncho in the front, almost like a dickie that turns into a cowl that turns into a hood. And it's
Cool.
just so easy to plop on. You can wear it over a little jacket, which is what I usually do, or you can put it under a big puffy coat as well. You can wear the hood up or down. So it's kind of versatile. And it also felt different than things that I had seen. And it was kind of like high fashion in a way, if you make it out of the right stuff and pair it with the right outfit, you know? So I was
Yes.
like, all my friends were like, oh, please make me one. And I eventually taught most of my friends to knit so they could make their own, because I got tired of making it. But I still, to this day, that is one of my absolute favorite pieces. I've made several of them for myself, and I would like to make another one. And the first one I made out of all scraps. I didn't have a pattern. And so
Wow.
I think it was even my aunt or something wanted to knit it. And so I had to write the pattern for her to like explain how to do it. And I was like, I should sell the pattern too. And that's kind of what
Yes.
launched that as well.
That's awesome. Now, do you
Yeah.
have a crochet pattern for it?
I do. That's called the battalion scarf. It's pretty much exactly
Absolutely.
the same. Yeah. That is
Writing
one of
that
those things that
down.
you can translate from knit to crochet very easily.
Oh, cool. So
Yeah.
let's see if we have any more questions. Everybody loved your story about your name. It was
Oh,
definitely
thank you.
inspiring and really cool. Um, Folks are talking about how they have so many Furls hooks and they have great
Good.
collections.
Nice.
And then I don't know if you want to say that the story that you just told was your favorite pattern, but what's your favorite items to design?
Ooh, oh man, that is also such a tough question. I really love literally making anything. Um, I think that when you make a sweater and you get to wear it, the kind of like you're so proud and the kind of accomplishment of that feels so good. And so I do love designing garments, and that's kind of where I started as well. From a design perspective in college, I was only designing clothing and flat pattern design, kind of for like woven. The funny thing about my college experience also is that we had to do a final fashion show, which was like 25 pieces. All of the hems, everything had to be hand sewn. It was very specific, and we weren't allowed to use knit fabric. So I had no experience really other than hand knitting, like working with knit fabric at all. So a lot of I still to this day think in terms of like flat pattern for woven pieces and how garments fit together when I'm designing knitwear. Um, but so I do love making garments and sweaters because they're just elaborate. They feel so substantial and so professional. So those are always fun. But I love home decor as well and accessories because those are more universal and you don't need, there's only one size and you can make them for anyone. And a lot of times those are more unisex as well. So, you can gift give much easier when you are making accessories and home decor than like a fitted garment. I did not answer that question because I just said I love
No,
everything. But
you love all the things. You love
I
making
do.
all the
I
things.
do. It's so hard to choose. It's like choosing a child, favorite child. You can't do that.
Can't do it. Can't do it. So I have
No.
a question from Pam,
Okay,
one of
Pam.
our yeah. She said, "What's next for Two of Wands?" Which is a great
Ooh,
question.
yes. Well, a break.
What's that?
Last year was one of the most intense for sure for me. I think that a lot of people in this industry, we are all so lucky that people around the world were turning to yarn crafts during such an intense and really upsetting time. And I'm so grateful to be in an industry that flourished during that time. And with that came just a lot of work, which again, very, very grateful for. Absolutely do not want to complain about that at all. But I launched a really exciting project last year along with Lion Brand, which is a whole line of yarn called Hue and Me that I designed with them. And so that was a lot of work. And so I'm kind of riding that wave. I'm so happy that I birthed that project. It's out there. And now this year, it's just all about continuing to kind of promote that and hopefully maybe come out with some new colors in the fall in that yarn as well. And obviously continuing to design. So I've got my spring collection coming out. And I tend to do 1 or 2 patterns a month, I would say. I'm trying to dial that back a little bit because there's so much administrative work and things that I've like pushed off last year because last year I think I designed 57 patterns. And I make them all myself too. So it's just like a lot of
Wait,
hours.
wait, wait,
And
wait, 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 wait. Did you say you created 57 patterns?
yeah,
That's more than a pattern a week.
I know. I know.
Oh,
And a lot of them were, you know, 8 size graded sweaters too. It was a lot. I did not sleep all of 2020. So I'm trying to give myself a little bit of a break this year, but it is hard because I do love what I do so much. And it's hard for
yeah.
me to, I just am constantly have so many ideas and I find inspiration in so many different places that I'm an extremist and I'm an indulgent person and I just want it all and I can't stop myself. I'm like, get an idea. I'm like, I have to make it. but I am trying to design a little bit less this year so that I've always wanted to do more educational stuff when it comes to design as well. I'd love to have a little like design series. I would love to write a book at some point. I think about doing little like e-zines sometimes because I have a lot of other interests outside of knitting as well. I love to cook and I love home decor and other DIY projects and everything. So I would love to incorporate more of those things into my business as well, whether it's, you know, blog posts about recipes or other things that you can, other DIY projects, or even just other DIY projects with yarn that aren't just knitting and crochet. I'd love to have the opportunity to explore that stuff too. So that's why I'm trying to design less so I have more time for those things, but it's so hard.
I hear
So
you. People
hard.
are jealous of you. They love what you're doing.
Okay.
They're
You,
excited
I
for you.
understand that. You know, when you're not going to be jealous of me is at every night at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm still working. And then I wake up to like 400 emails of people asking questions.
Oh
And
my gosh.
customer service is a huge, huge, huge part of this
Yes.
job. And so you have to be ready and willing to understand that that is like 80% of what I do really is that. It's not all yarn all day. Actually, I work so late in the evenings with yarn because that's really the only time that I have to actually
To
make stuff.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
understandable. Definitely, the customer service is a huge deal. And I think
Hmm.
that Furls prides itself on having great customer service, but
Yes.
you have to
Yes.
make yourself available. You
Hmm.
have to be understanding. You have to be patient.
Hmm.
Um, she said her husband constantly reminds her to put her yarn down. Go to bed. Same here. My husband's like, okay, enough. I'm going to bed. Are you coming? But
No,
yeah,
my boyfriend just passes out at 9. He doesn't even question it anymore. He's just like, good night.
like I know where I'll find you.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Are there any things that you would share with someone who is looking to become a designer and looking to really
Absolutely.
launch their brand? What
Yeah.
kind of advice would you give them?
There's so much. I'll try to speak to like the top things. I say, I think designing, if you're looking to get into the industry and you're questioning whether you should design or whether you should sell finished pieces, I think listen to your heart and what excites you the most. Designing requires more like math and more newness all the time. So it's always like putting a puzzle together, whereas making finished pieces, you can have your set core number of things and then it's much more meditative because you're repeating the same things over and over again. So it might be a little bit more enjoyable. There's not going to be as much customer service because people aren't asking you questions about the patterns themselves. Like I get on a daily basis dozens of emails that are like, hey, I'm working on a pattern that you launched in 2015. I'm on row 87 and my stitch count is off by 2. Why is that? And I'm like, I,
Wow.
I have like 300 patterns, so I have to go find that one, read the whole thing, refamiliarize myself with it, even figure out that takes a lot of time. So there's a lot of customer service when it comes to designing. But in terms of like, I make sure that you've got lots of different kind of revenue streams happening. I think that people don't really know sometimes how designers make money. So I would say that, I have free patterns on my blog. So there's money that comes in and it's all little trickles from different places that add up to a salary for a career. But I get little trickles from the ads that I have on my blog when people come to view my content for free. If they don't want to deal with the ads, then they can purchase a PDF for $3.50. So I can make money off of the sales of my printer friendly patterns as well. There's affiliate marketing, so I can link to yarn and supplies that I've used. And there is commissions from yarn companies and other brands that want to work with you. So, all of those things trickle in. In terms of building a brand and like how to decide, how to market yourself and everything. I did do a blog post about branding and merchandising on the Our Maker Life website you can check out. And I have something on a blog post on my own site as well about my 7 tips for like online sales and also in-person sales at handcraft markets and stuff like that. I think it's important to do some branding exercises. Etsy has an incredible seller's handbook that has all kinds of resources and articles that are written by professional people in various industries that talk all about marketing and publicizing yourself and how to really brand yourself and come up with a cohesive feel and really, you know, a brand that speaks to who you are. And I think that in this industry, a lot of people see people who are successful, they want to emulate them and do exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get into this kind of like copying thing, which is
Yes.
dangerous. Find your voice. There's room for everyone. And, you know, whatever you enjoy doing, just lean heavily into that. And at some point it's going to stick, but just be consistent. Don't overanalyze things too much before you get started, because you're never going to start. And if you could see some of the first photos that I took and the listing description, everything about my business, it is horrifying for me to look at now. But, you know, I couldn't be where I am today had I not started where I was then. And so just remember that you're never at the end point. It's a learning process the whole time. And there's so many resources out there now. I mean, with social media and you know, all these platforms we have to share, even like this, like we're able to learn so much. And so just absorb all of that you can. How to get views if you're a designer and you're like, I need people to come, you know, no one's seeing my stuff. I would say there's so many platforms. What's great about designing too, if you're selling finished pieces, someone really has to seek you out to find you. Etsy is a marketplace, so people are going there to already shop, so they're going to find you that way. But if you only have your own website or something, the chances of someone finding you without you leading them there is really slim. But with pattern design, there's so many platforms where you can sell your patterns. And so you're going to get eyes without you even directing people there. So Ravelry is a great place. Etsy also, I sell patterns on my own site, and Love Crafts as well. Yeah. They're a UK company where you can sell patterns too. So just like being on as many platforms as you can, so that you're reaching a broader audience, I think is important. Pinterest is probably the #1 traffic driver for all design. I don't utilize Pinterest as much as I should, which I really need to get on that. It feels like a mountain.
Girl, up your game.
It's a higher mountain than Mount Kilimanjaro, let me tell you. I just like haven't figured out how to climb that one yet. Once you work it into your workflow, I think it becomes just like easy going, but like the process of really like wrapping my head around it is for some reason like stagnating me. Instagram is great, you know, tagging as many people and brands as you can so that they're going to also reshare it, because a lot of these yarn companies and like, you know, tool companies, supply companies, they have huge followings as well. So if they're going to reshare your stuff, then that's going to get eyeballs on there. Having testers is great. I unfortunately never have time to use testers, but I have friends who are designers who do, because then you're creating little mini ambassadors. Every time you're going to launch a pattern, you've got 10 people who have already made it, and they're also going to be sharing it to their audiences. So that just like organically grows more and more eyes on what you're doing. And then I would say also, as I said before, just to be consistent, photography it's just inevitably going to be a huge factor in how your stuff is perceived. So, you know, you can take everything on an iPhone. You don't need to invest in like crazy expensive camera gear or anything like that. There are so many free apps that you can download to help with like post editing. You'd be shocked what my photos look like before I do the editing to them. There's a lot of editing that goes into that. A lot of brightening.
A lot of
bright photos that are, you know, light filled tend to perform better on all different platforms. One thing that I noticed on Etsy, which when I was originally on only that platform, I took all of my photos against a white wall. And as I started to get more savvy with photography, I was taking all of these more lifestyle shots, like in the city with like the backdrop of like, you know, staircases and stuff like that. And I love photos like that because it really creates, in my opinion, like more of a mood. And that stuff suits like Instagram so well. But in a sea of search results on Etsy, your photo doesn't stand out. If it's just a clean shot with a white background, eyes are immediately drawn to that. So if Etsy or a place like Ravelry or something like that are the main platforms that you plan to be on, I would try to keep the photos as clean as possible with a solid background, because there's less clutter and your eyes are immediately drawn to that. Whereas like on Instagram, which is my biggest platform, that doesn't matter as much and it's more about the mood. So you kind of learn like which platforms different photography is going to perform better on. But there's these days you can literally learn anything on YouTube, and there's some amazing
Anything.
photography tutorials on YouTube to go in there, dig around. It's all free, and you can learn so much. And I think that if you're going to invest your time in anything aside from just like making the stuff, it would be to learn how to take or edit really beautiful photos, because that will help your stuff get shared more, and it will elevate your brand a lot more. And I think that people are willing to invest more money in you as well if your brand looks expensive. I'm not saying it has to
Yes,
be like
it's
super
true.
high fashion or anything like that, but just clean and refined and polished is always a good thing, you know?
Yeah,
And you can
I
be
agree.
making wild, crazy art. It doesn't have to be like perfectly polished or anything like that, but a nice photo speaks volumes. So I think that's really important. Did I answer that question?
Yes, yes, you did. I love how passionate you become when you start talking about things like that, things that you've learned along the way. And I'm glad that you're so free and willing to share that information with others. I hope that everybody who is listening got some good nuggets out of there because,
So
I
too.
mean, you gave us some stuff that people are paying lots of money to get. So thank you. Thank you for being so
My
willing to
pleasure.
share.
My
Yeah,
pleasure.
yeah,
I mean, I think
sure.
if you hold on to that stuff, it's not serving anyone. I'm always happy to share my experiences because, it's not like I hold the secrets to anything. It's all been trial and error.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
I,
mhm.
people do things differently than I do. I'm just really just sharing my own experience and what's worked for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. So the final question, because
Yeah.
she posted a couple and she's really
Of
engaged, I want to make sure her question gets answered.
Absolutely.
Jackie wants to know, I'm always asked to make things for
Hmm.
people, but never know how to price them. We know the work that
Yeah.
goes into making blankets and stuff. Like, how do you price your
Yeah.
things? That'll be my last
Oh
question from
man,
the
yeah,
list.
it's hard. And I know it's a pain point for so many people in our industry because it does take so long, to make things. And on one hand, a customer can be like, well, I could buy this at J. Crew for $40. Why would I
All the
spend 400
time.
on your sweater,
Always the answer. Yeah.
But you have got to value your time. Look at it like this. I give this example all the time. If you are selling handmade things at a market, at a booth next to someone else, and you're both selling knit hats, and both, and you're selling maybe the same knit hat, this person next to you, and it takes an hour, say it takes an hour to make this hat, and you're both selling the same one. This person next to you is selling them for $10 each, and you're selling the same hat for $100.
Mhm.
Obviously, the person next to you is going to get more sales. But some people might see your hat and be like, that hat's $100. There's got to be something special about that. I'm going to buy that
Mhm.
one. You will get infrequently, but you will get people who want the more expensive hat because of their own desire to, like, be cool. The person next to you, to get $100 of sales, has to sell 10 of their $10 hats. That means that for 1 hour of your work, you made $100, but for 10 hours of their work, they made $100. So just because you have less sales selling things at a higher price point doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. You're just paying yourself and investing in yourself more, which I think is hugely important. And unfortunately, this industry doesn't really, the people who make the stuff values it, I think, but the people who are buying it might not. Um, and I know so many people who have said, oh, I just charge, what I paid for the yarn, or I pay myself $5 an hour or something like that. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you need to pay yourself what, if you had a 9 to 5 job in like, and I'm not talking about, working at a fast food place, 9 to 5 job. I'm like, if you had a 9 to 5 job working in like a major company or something like that, how much would you be paying? That company is paying you for your time, and you need to pay yourself for the time that you're spending making anything. And if your business were to, say, grow and a store wanted to carry your stuff, they're only going to pay you half of what you like. If this hat that I'm selling is $100, that's the retail price. A store wouldn't only pay me probably $50 to sell that. So if your hat only costs $10, a store is going to be like, I'll take 30, and then they're
Yep.
only going to pay you $5 for it. You're like, you're actually paying them to sell your hats that you made and you wasted your time on. And if I ever had to hire anyone, I would have to pay them $15 to $20 an hour. I'm not going to pay someone less than that, if not more than that. You know, if I'm not paying myself that, how can I pay anyone else? So you're putting a cap on your business growing at all if you don't invest in yourself from that foundation, from that get-go. So I would say charge like in the real world, something in a store that has $100 price tag on it probably costs that company like $5 to $10 to actually make. Their profit margin is huge. So if your goal is to sell finished pieces at a reasonable price point, or, you know, something that you think people will be able to afford or want to pay for, make things that are very quick to make, and make things that are easy to just pump out, because you don't want to feel, I got to the point when I was selling finished things that I'd start to get resentful when I got an order, which is a terrible feeling to have, because I'm like, I have all these ideas of things I want to design, and now this person is relying on me to make this thing, and I have to ship it to them, and it's something I've made so many times. I'm so tired of making it, you know? And that's when I had these realizations of like, I really just need to do pattern design, because I don't want to feel resentful over I'm so grateful that this stranger on the internet would want to buy something of mine. And it's also scary because you don't want to like say it's too much, because then you're afraid maybe they're going to say, oh, well then no, thanks. That's too much. I can't afford that. Or I'm not willing to invest my money in you at that level. So it's tricky. And it also depends, I think, you know, who you're talking to, where that person lives. Everyone's different socioeconomic levels are different in different regions of the country and the world. And, you know, every town is different. And some people, the great thing about the internet is that you have access to literally everyone. So you can charge as much as you want and someone can still find it and will be willing. It's not just you're selling in your small town where, you know, people aren't able to afford what you're offering. But I think that Jackie was asking, make things for people. Maybe that's like your friends and family and they're asking. You know, I love giving handmade gifts. I've actually not done so many handmade gifts recently because I don't have time, because they are such a time investment, you know? But I would add up your hours and charge yourself nothing less than minimum wage, if not double minimum wage, because there's so many other factors to take into consideration when you're selling anything. It's not just the hours of labor and the cost of yarn. There's so many other things. How much does your website cost? How much are your Etsy fees? How much are the tools and supplies? What about your internet costs? What about your cell phone that you have to have for social media? What about, you know, the shelves that your yarn is on? Like, there's so many other overhead costs that need to be factored into that as well. So round up. Round up.
The moral of the story is round up, Jackie. You got to charge them for your time and talent.
And don't be scared to state your worth and say, it took me this many hours, this is how much it costs. Because people might not know how much labor goes into that, you know?
Yep. Yeah. She said the last blanket that she made, she used the timer to get an idea of how long it took. I need to do that. That people, like you said, people don't understand. They don't get it. How long it takes, the time that goes into it. Figuring out a pattern, like trying to read a pattern and understand it sometimes can be time consuming. So that's really, really good advice. Good stuff. You told me you only had half an hour, but we've been talking for an hour.
Listen, I just love your energy. You are so positive and fun. How could I ever want this conversation to end? Come on.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. Are there any ending words, anything, you know, your website, anything that you would like to share with the audience? I think that everybody has really enjoyed this conversation, and
I hope so. I hope that I, you know, was able to offer insight. I don't know if most of you guys watching are more interested in design, or you're just makers and, you know, or what, you know, you were hoping to get out of this, but hopefully I ticked a few boxes. You can find me on social media at Two of Wands. My website is twoofwands.com. My Etsy shop is Two of Wands Shop. Two of Wands was taken. Still hasn't been used, but that username was taken when I started. And on YouTube and also on Pinterest, I'm Two of Wands Knits. But yeah, connect on totally, you know, we can connect on social media. I try so hard to answer as many questions as I can via DM and comments and emails and all of this, but it is
You
quite
answered me.
overwhelming. So if I,
You answered me. I feel
I try to
special.
get through most of them, but I know there's stuff that falls through the cracks. So I'm really, you know, sorry in advance if I can't answer all of your questions. But I think that, I guess, biggest advice I would have is just, you know, if you have a passion for something, even if you have to do it at night after your normal job, if it's something that fills you up and that you want to try to pursue, go for it, because there's no place to start from that's better or worse. Everyone's journeys are different. We all have different, you know, strengths that we're able to bring to design, to making, to all of it. And you can be a huge YouTube star and not have an Instagram presence. If your vibe is education, lean into that and like have YouTube videos where you're educating people and teaching them how to do stuff. You can make a lot of money as a YouTube
Yep.
channel star. You know, and just find, there's so many parts of the business. You can be a pattern tester, you can be a tech editor, you can work for magazines and companies that promote other designers. There's so many different parts and so many different career choices within this industry. So explore all of those things and see what fills you up the most and what gets you the most excited, and just lean into that, and always keep learning, and don't, you know, give yourself some grace. I know I have so many people who have reached out to me and just said, I'm just so scared. I'm afraid I'm going to do it wrong. I made so many mistakes. You know, everyone will. You're going to learn from those mistakes, and you'll never get past them if you don't learn from, if you don't make them to begin with. So that's my
That's
advice.
good stuff.
Just go for
Thank
it.
you. Go for it. Facebook user said, this has been great. Thank you for sharing. I think that that is a perfect way to end. Thank you so, so much for
My
sharing with us
pleasure.
tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Have
This
a
was fun.
fantastic night.
Thank you. You
Everybody
too.
who is on watching, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Deveter Brown, and you've been listening to Maker Stories. Make sure you go and check out furls.com, click on the blog link and Maker Stories, and you can read more about Alexandra. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.